Thank you for joining me again this week for another daily pause. Get comfortable. We're going to start right away with some music. And just a word of caution, it starts a little loud. probably heard that very famous melody. The very beginning of the movement starts, with an English horn, typically. It just has a tender, nostalgic, hopeful, yearning quality to it. So this comes from the second movement, Dvorak's Ninth Symphony. This week, the Wayne Oratorio Society has been on my mind as we were scheduled to perform this coming weekend and postponed. Antonin Dvorak is a Czech composer, and he's one whom the Oratorio has performed works of previously, but not in the past several years. And so with Earth Day being yesterday, and this idea of going home, or in our case, getting back to some semblance of normal life rhythms as we knew them, this symphony has been in my mind and in my ear. If you haven't heard it, I would encourage you to go to YouTube and listen to it. If you look at American music history, from the colonial time to the beginning of the 20th century, Americans were always looking to the Western European classical music tradition, trying to replicate that tradition here. So they modeled music education after the European conservatories. They developed singing schools to help educate people, as well as choral societies to perform music that they brought over from Europe. So they composed in established forms and styles. Now in 1891, a New York City socialite wanted to foster an American school of composition. And to help jumpstart this endeavor, she wanted a known composer, Insta celebrity of sorts, if you will. And so she convinced Dvorak to become the director of the newly formed National Conservatory of Music, which was in New York City. And Dvorak lived in the Lower East Side across from Mount Sinai Hospital, and there's actually a park adjacent to the hospital that has a statue in his honor. And Dvorak was building the school's faculty, he was developing curriculum, he was guest conducting, and he was also composing. And so this symphony, from which I just played, he composed in 1893 during the winter and spring months, and the premiere was given in December of 1893 by the New York Philharmonic in Carnegie Hall. A critic for the New York Evening Post declared it the greatest symphonic work ever composed in this country. Now, as Dvorak was bringing influence to America, he ultimately gave an important message to American composers. Now, one of the things that contributes to this conversation is right before the premieres of Symphony 9, when he began duplicating parts, he hastily added to the title, From the New World. Musicologists since that time have argued for decades, what did he actually mean by that comment, that subtitle? So Dvorak, from the moment he stepped off the ocean liner that brought him to America to the docks of Hoboken, observed American life. He'd walk through Central Park, feed the pigeons, he'd visit with other Central Europeans living in the Lower East Side, and there was a strong cafe scene there where they would gather. He'd watch the ocean liners come and go amongst the wharves, and he'd even clock the trains as the locomotives raced into city stations. He'd summer in a Czech community in Iowa. Don't know if he went to the state fair. No, he definitely didn't see the butter cow, because that didn't happen until 1911. But one of his famous students at this new conservatory in New York City was Harry Burleigh, who introduced Dvorak to slave songs and spirituals that Harry learned from his grandfather. Dvorak also heard Native American music. Ragtime music was influencing the proliferation of Tin Pan Alley, which was an early form of popular music. And he also experienced just much of developing American culture. And yet it wasn't long until Dvorak longed to leave New York City and go home to his native Bohemia, which happened just 3 years after his arrival in America. But his message to the American musicians he encountered was, embrace the many growing styles of America, embrace your diversity, embrace your traditions that are already here, rather than trying to emulate what is happening back in Europe. So meld what you already know into a fuller, richer experience. I was thinking about the readings this week in the lectionary. The first letter of Peter is one of the scheduled readings for Sunday. And so I just want to share with you from 1 Peter. This starts in chapter 13, where Peter's encouraging the people into fuller, a call to more holy living. So the letter reads, "Therefore prepare your minds for action, discipline yourselves, set all your hope on the grace of Jesus Christ, that it will bring you and that will be revealed. Like obedient children, do not be conformed to the desires that you formerly had in ignorance. Instead, as he who called you is holy, be holy yourselves in all your conduct. For it is written, you shall be holy, for I am holy. If you invoke as Father the one who judges all people impartially according to their deeds, live in reverent fear during the time of your exile. You know that you were ransomed from the futile ways inherited from your ancestors, not with perishable things like silver and gold, but with the precious blood of Christ, like that of a lamb without defect or blemish. He was destined before the foundation of the world, but was revealed at the end of the ages for your sake. Through him you have come to trust in God, who raised him from the dead and gave him glory, so that your faith and hope are set on God. Now that you have purified your souls by your obedience to the truth, so that you have genuine mutual love, love one another deeply from the heart. You have been born anew, not of perishable, but of imperishable seed, through the living and enduring Word of God. For all flesh is like grass, and all its glory like the flower of grass. The grass withers and the flower falls, but the word of the Lord endures forever. That word is the good news that was announced to you." So as we sojourn through these Corona times, I remind you that this is just a moment. It's a moment that we're passing through. And while it's been a moment that's a temporary holding pattern, a temporary home, if you will, and in it we've carried fears, our frustrations, our uncertainties, loss, and yet this yearning for a return to community. And so Peter's encouraging us to set all our hope on the grace promised to us in Jesus Christ. He who is holy calls us to holiness. And during this Easter season, we're reminded that the Son of Man also came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. And as you purified your souls by your obedience to this truth, may you have genuine mutual love and love one another deeply from the heart. And my hope is that we come out of this time of social distancing with a greater sense of compassion, greater appreciation for our communities, greater empathy for those who see the world differently from us, and hopefully with a rededication to things that actually matter and the urgency to melt these attributes into fuller living. And so I want to leave you with the lyrics that were written for Dvorak's beautiful melody. A student of his actually composed these words some 30 years later. And some of you know these songs, you've heard it. But going home, I'm a-going home. Quiet like some still day, I'm just going home. It's not far, just close by, through an open door, work all done, care laid by, going to fear no more. Mother's there expecting me, father's waiting too. Lots of folk gathered there, all the friends I knew. Home, I'm going home, nothing lost, all is gain. No more fret nor pain, no more stumbling on the way, no more longing for the day, going to Rome no more. Morning star lights the way, restless dream all done, shadows gone, break of day, real life just begun. There's no break, there's no end, just a living on, wide awake with a smile, going on and on. Going home. We're going home. God bless you.